So it's time for another very interesting edition of our favorite Wednesday feature where we focus on the unconventional side of law. It's called So Now What? And we're once again joined by one of our favorites, expert lawyer and director at legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern. So today's question is this: someone has used my information for their personal gain. So now what?
So now what?
So now what? We're focusing on your legal rights and recourses when it comes to fraud and protecting yourself. Obviously focusing on this in lieu of Black Friday looming above us, where we're going to all spend far too much money.
We've got a Christmas tree here, but we've still got more holidays coming up before there.
Well, this is the thing, and I mean, South Africa has embraced online spending and Black Friday.
Yeah, grabbed it by the horns.
Actually, do you know that we are, in terms of the global adaptation, it's us and Spain have embraced it more than any other country in the world.
100%.
Amazing stuff. So let's talk about online fraud specifically. We cover quite a broad spectrum, but what are the most kind of typical ways that people are being defrauded online?
Okay, well, I mean, you know, every day there's new ways. So, you know, there used to be just these 411 scams, and there were kind of very popular ways of people getting scammed. As technology increases and as our usage of technology increases, there's more scams every day. So when it comes to Black Friday, there's, you know, you got to watch out for fraudulent sites. You know, websites which are just, you know, fronts for people to just take your credit card details. Fraudulent deals. You got to look out for things that just are not real on the internet. So, I mean, because you got to remember with e-commerce, when you're paying online, you're essentially going to someone, you know, you're going to a shop which you can't see. So you're going to have to have some. So you're going to have to make sure that place has some credibility. Otherwise, it could be a fraud.
And we'll delve a little deeper into that. But I suppose the big question for me is now, because someone tried to use my credit card details to buy something on a website, on a well-known online sales platform.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, are these retailers not obligated to protect you in some way from that? Luckily, the transaction was stopped, was kind of red flagged before it got completed.
Okay, so definitely, as you know, as with e-commerce has increased and as online spending, or in all sorts of ways, you know, sending money remittance, online e-commerce, as we do more online, the laws have increased around it. So retailers definitely have an obligation to ensure that their site is safe, so that there's no fraud. If you are spending, if you are using your credit card, they're meant to require you to use 3D Secure. So there are rules that e-commerce sites do have to adhere to, but it's also up to us as the consumer to meet the online stores halfway, and that means, you know, being safe online. So we have an obligation and they have an obligation. If something's going wrong, it's going to often come down to figuring out, well, who made the mistake?
If the mistake has been made and money does disappear, are they liable to pay? Who pays? Is it the bank? Is it the retailer? Or do you just cry?
It's a very complex question. And there's not one way that money disappears online. There's numerous ways, so it really depends on what happens. So a very popular scam that's going around, particularly around legal practices at the moment, is where legal practices will have a fake email that's sent out. Someone will hack into their email or intercept an email and send the incorrect banking details, say for a property transaction. That sort of thing is very, very tough because a consumer, if you're EFTing money, it should be your obligation to make sure it's arriving where it's supposed to. So you must always verify your bank details. Where it comes to things like credit card transactions, if you have an incorrect payment on a credit card, provided you've gone through 3D Secure, then you as the consumer shouldn't be liable for it. So then what you can do is go to the bank and get a cashback. You can go and get that reversed. But what people don't know is that it's often passed on to the retailers. So retailers are often responsible. If a retailer accepts an online credit card payment and there's fraud on that credit card, the retailer is often made to pay that
often
back.
Obliged to do that, so I would imagine.
But it really depends on the retailer's agreement with the bank. It gets quite complex.
And protecting yourself going into Black Friday, as much as you think it's about the consumer, the retailers, that point of sale has to be as protected as well.
Yes.
But I can guarantee you, if that money has left your account, you will be going, so now what?
So now what?
Someone needs to be liable, but ultimately you have to protect yourself and protect your money. We'll be back in just a moment figuring out, so now what when it comes to online fraud? What are the ways that we can protect ourselves if something, preemptively before something goes wrong, but if something does happen, where do we go? Who do we speak to? Is there an ombudsman? Do we have to hire a lawyer? So now what? What do we do?
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're live with Expresso. Just delving into some of the messages you guys have been sending through. We're about to continue talking about online fraud with Eitan Stern, of course, from legalese.co.za. But this all speaks to a broader opportunity to get scammed as we move into Black Friday next Friday. But this is how people are thinking about Black Friday at the moment. I hope to be buying wisely and sticking to what I need only. Okay, how much do you really need? Martha saying, hi, Expresso. I'll be buying Christmas food and gifts. Very frugal, very clever. Sheena saying, I just buy what I need, go according to my list. Also have to save for school shopping, so don't overspend. Julia saying, morning, my plan is to buy some hair, Peruvian or Brazilian. She's hiding her face. Girl, you buy whatever you need. Nadia Similani saying, my plan has always been to have a specific amount of only cash, no other means of payment, so not to overspend. Try to research online to see what I need and want beforehand. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to go into Black Friday with a plan, but when you are operating online in any sense, you have got to protect yourself, because ultimately you don't need a lot of information to scam someone.
For sure.
When we move into the general fraud space, what do you do when you realize that you have been defrauded? Who do you speak to? Because in my experience, going to the police, I got treated with almost a kind of judgment that I didn't expect, where it was almost dismissed because I'd been frauded as opposed to being robbed at gunpoint, so to speak. Who do you speak to?
Okay, so what do you do is a really good question. So I liked your point, what you said earlier. The best thing that you can do to avoid being frauded is to avoid it. So precautionary stuff.
Yeah,
so
preemptive.
Preemptive stuff. Make sure your passwords are really strong. You know, two-step authentication on any of your bank or credit cards. So that means if you want to make a transaction, that the bank, the retailer will need to confirm that it's you making it via some other device. So precautionary. It's 2019. We really have to start to be very careful.
Yeah, educate yourself.
But let's say that you have been defrauded. The first thing you can do is cease any communication with that site. So if you can stop the transaction or the transaction hasn't been completed in full. So let's say you're buying something off Gumtree or a site from someone in person, you can stop the transaction, do that.
And that would be speaking directly to your bank. To your bank
so then the next step, so the next thing for sure is to go to your bank, tell them what's happened. If you feel like your credit card's been breached or your bank account's been breached, let the bank know immediately. All the banks will have lines in order to...
Yeah, fraud lines, block it.
100%. Change your passwords. So now if you've been defrauded, go to your passwords, change them. If your identity's been stolen, you can go to the credit bureau if you've been listed on a credit bureau. And then if all this has happened, you can certainly go to the police. The police's job this is a crime. It's an electronic crime, it's 100% a crime. They're supposed to deal with it. The problem is police and a lot of people don't really know what to do in the space because it's so new. The SAPs do have a fraud prevention unit, so you can also escalate it to them. And those are sort of your recourses of what to do.
How liable are you? We've spoken about the liability of the banks and of everyone else, the retailers, but what kind of, surely at some point, it's your name, it's your card. Is it your product at the end of the day? Do you just have to suck it up and deal with it?
It really depends. It's really hard to say. It really depends on the circumstances. If you've been negligent and, it's like leaving your wallet on a table and if it gets stolen, a crime has been committed, but it is your negligence. So, we should never be, just because we're the victims of crime doesn't mean we have to accept it. So, but at the same time, yes, if we all need to, the electronic crime is real and we all need to wake up around it.
That being said, in a perfect world, we'll always get something back, but are you absolutely entitled to get that money back, or will it happen?
So again, it just depends on the circumstances. Sometimes you can have insurance on your credit cards or on your bank accounts. So in certain instances, if there's been a fraud, the bank will insure you for it. But that's not all instances. When it comes to online transactions...
And sorry, that insurance, would that be the bank doing that on your behalf, or can you...
You could do that. The banks will often insure you. But you could get fraud insurance. I mean, you could insure anything, really. So those products probably do exist, or they will start to exist soon. But you can also, if it's been a credit card transaction, credit card transactions online are supposed to be relatively secure, in the sense that if there's been a fraudulent transaction, and retailers are supposed to use 3D Secure, if someone's managed to get through that, then the banks should refund you, or the retailers should refund you.
You've played
for
your
it.
part. You've done what
Yeah,
you could.
but it really, there's a million different ways people can get scammed online. It's really going to depend on on the circumstances. But the best thing I can suggest is just be precautious around this. Don't use the same PIN. Don't use your birthday as your credit card PIN. Don't use the same details for your bank as you do for your movie account or something like that for low security. So we really just have to wake up around this.
Yeah, man, and watch
real.
what you put on social media, because it's very easy to kind of fish for that information.
Yeah, for sure.
And let's be honest, to make a fraudulent transaction happen, you don't need a huge amount of information. Once they've got your card details and a couple of critical things, game over. Buddy, stay safe.
I will.
Over this crazy period, Black Friday is coming. Educate yourself, empower yourself, protect yourself.
For sure.